I feel
Water.
No, because it's getting out of hand now. Is anybody worried about their health? Is anybody worried about waking up the next motherfucking morning? At this point, what the fuck is really going on? I mean it.
Nothing tastes better than wasting money you shouldn't be wasting. And for me, I have to go on my weekly dinners with my best friend. So this week we went to Sugo Thai and we got a few things, but more importantly, we had our weekly debrief. And for me, I have to have my dinners with my girls just to keep the winter depression away and to really, I feel like just start the week. So we are in week 2 and 2 days we're going to be doing chocolate. I think we're doing like bonbons, Dubai chocolate, little things. So you guys along with me. So let's go. Bye. Now last week was the week of chocolate sculptures and stress. This week I like to call the week of diabetes. Now, like all chocolate classes, we have 2 classes, and the first one's all about prep. So I'm prepping our nuts here with cocoa butter, and I'm getting them really shiny, and that's going to be used for our nougat. Now, the nuts were really hot, so I melted the cocoa butter and just made them like really shiny. I'm not really a nougat person, so I was just like, okay, whatever this is. I never grew up with this, so I don't know. So we're making 2 different types of cookies. We're making a matcha cookie and a raspberry cookie. And it's kind of like a sandwich, and in the middle is going to have ganache, which is white chocolate. So we're using raspberry chocolate and matcha chocolate. And then we're going to put it in these little squares, and then they're going to freeze, and then the chocolate gets hard. And then we're going to be able to cut them into like little squares. Now the cookie part was kind of like a shortbready cookie. It was so hard to roll because imagine like you're trying to roll like crumble. Like I literally had to walk back and I had to take a break. I was like, my back was finished trying to roll this. And after we like kind of make them into perfect squares, had to be exactly, I think 2 inch by 2 inch. And then we stamp them with a matcha stamp. And then obviously when you take them out, you can break them and bake them. So for me, I had to roll the matcha one and the raspberry one, get them to like paper thin. Because when cookies bake, they rise. But the hardest part was obviously, for me, I suck with measurements. So I was just like, I need to get 2 inch by 2 inch and it needs to be uniform. Baking is all about uniformity and I'm the opposite of uniform. Like it's not really my thing. So I'm just trying to get better at that in general. So here I'm making my squares and then the ones on the outer I'm not going to use. And then after I'm going to stamp each one with, this one's raspberry. So it had the French name of raspberry. I cannot tell you what it is. I think it was called, let me not try it, but search the French word of raspberry and then that's what it was. The next thing is diabetes in a square. Now my teacher was raving about this fudge recipe. He was like, oh, it's like the Niagara Falls fudge that you see on like when you go to Niagara Falls. Personally for me, I never heard about this fudge, but I was like, yeah, I heard about it. Like, I believe you, it's the fudge from Niagara Falls. Oh my God, I was with him. But in my head, I was like, I've never heard of this fudge before. But he was like, it tastes exactly the same. Now we did a maple one and we're going to do an Oreo one. And you kind of like, this is me doing it. So you basically make the sugar, butter, diabetes bowl. And then you boil it and then you put it in these squares to let it cool off. Now we're putting it in a marble slab. So everything cools a lot faster on a marble slab. And then I'm moving it around. And you're not supposed to move it around that much because a lot spills out. You're supposed to move it very gently and very tightly. Me and my partner were laughing. He's like, you were having too much fun with the fudge. And I was like, yeah, I was having so much fun with fudge. Because, sometimes I just like to have fun in class, Now, my teacher was like, clean it up and get back to work. So after my fudge reached a certain temperature, I was able to pull it up. And then we just kind of like scrape it around, sort of like chocolate, until it reaches a certain temperature. For me, I had to reach 40 Celsius before I added the Oreos because the Oreos will melt if I add it to like hot sugar. So here I am just scraping it. This is probably one of my favorite parts of chocolate class because I find it really relaxing. It's kind of like, I don't know, that TikTok where that robot's trying to clean up stuff. I know it's sad, but like, I always find it really interesting. This part was my favorite, adding the Oreos and then all of it coming together. I just like the messiness of it. After I scrape it and like mix it really well, it cannot cool too much because again, it's sugar and butter and diabetes. So I was just like, let me just do it, whatever it needs to do. And then it reached like, I think 32 Celsius or 27. I don't know. I put it in these little like loaf pans. Can you imagine they're in loaf pans and then we're going to cut them and like each person's going to get an Oreo with the fudge and it's just pure sugar. And if you love sugar like me, I was having a great time. But man, this was the sweetest thing I've ever eaten. But it's absolutely delicious. And apparently Niagara Falls sells it for like a bunch of money. This was so easy to make. But like here is all our fudge. We have the Oreo. We have the maple with a little swirly swirl, real cute. I was just like, this was pretty easy. Now, I wasn't really satisfied with the way I cut the matcha cookies, but the raspberry cookies were absolutely perfect. I think next time I'll use a pizza cutter. And after we baked them, we're just like putting them on a tray to make them completely cool. Moved on to the nougat. I think the nougat was just like sugar and egg whites or something. And then now I folded in the nuts, but the way we had to fold it in was like fold it in using a silk pad because we didn't want the nuts to break. So that was like very important. They need to be like crunchy so that when we cut it later on, which is like next day, you can see like the nuts. So we're just putting it in this little mold, this squared mold, and we put like wafer paper at the bottom and at the top. I don't know what for, but like we put it on. I just went to the bathroom for a second, but like today was so much easier. So we did nougats, and then we did they have like this fudge that apparently looks like the one from Niagara Falls. So we did that as well. And then we did cookies and like ganache fillings, all the stuff I love because it's like, as long as it's not chocolate, that's all that matters. I gotta go back and wrap up day 1. Tomorrow is day 2. We're gonna be doing, I think, Dubai chocolate. I think. It's been great. I give it a 10 out of 10. The time now is 6:43. I'm gonna go downstairs, get some breakfast, and I gotta go. So I'll see you guys in class. Bye. Now, because of how great day 1 was, I was really excited for day 2 because this time we're making chocolate, we're making Dubai chocolate, we're making like little caramels. So just honestly fun stuff. So here I'm just preparing the trays so that we can have everything organized because the most important thing about baking is organization. We have diabetes in another pot. We have passion fruit, and we're making passion fruit caramel with like a bunch of butter and cream, and we're gonna heat it up to a certain temperature, and then the same things of like the fudge and all that stuff, just a bunch of sugar, butter, and flavors, and then cutting them up and then boiling them pretty much. And now here we're putting them in these squares, and we're gonna let them completely like refrigerate the entire class because it has to be hard enough to like, cut into caramels. Those little caramels you wrap up with plastic on the 2 ends? That's what we're trying to do. Dubai chocolate bars. Now, one thing I am tired of hearing about is Dubai chocolate, but I love pistachio. So when we were doing it, I was like, I'm tired of it. As a Muslim person, like I'm tired of hearing about it. We need something new, we need something fresh. But doing it while I was like in class, I was having so much fun because we got to use a bunch of like colors, and green and yellow and gold was like the color to be, because I guess this to show people like this is Dubai. I don't know what Dubai has to do with pistachio. I don't know what it has to do with chocolate. I don't know why it's called Dubai chocolate, but I was having fun. So we have all the molds like ready, and then we made the katafi pistachio filling. Now personally for me, I didn't really like it that much because I think it had orange in it, which I don't know why it had orange in it. Don't look at me. I didn't write the recipe, but it had orange in it. Well, I don't know. Sometimes pastry chefs like to make stuff sophisticated. It wasn't sweet enough, as I said. But I'm a diabetes person, so ask someone else. But here we have the molds ready. Now, when you have all the chocolate molds ready, that means we're going to use tempered chocolate. Thank God we didn't have to use our own tempered chocolate, but we had the tempered chocolate machine. So here I'm just adding chocolate into the molds, into both of them. And it couldn't be too much because remember, this is like the outside filling and we needed space for the inside filling. So I'm just trying to like put a little bit in there. And I'm going to use a spoon to like get the edges and the sides so that everything is completely covered. We also did the balls as well. So we just like added chalk on the top and then spilled out the excess. So here I'm just getting all the edges because we cannot let like, imagine you see a little crack into the chocolate. That's not cute. That's not gourmet. That's not pastry chef, So I was just like, let me get all the edges and let me get them nice and smooth. Even after I kind of went to the sides of it, my partner's idea, he's like, let's really get to edges because that's what cracks the most. So here we're adding the katafi filling. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Katafi. We're adding the pistachio filling, making sure it's nice and smooth so that we add tempered chocolate on top. It just fits really well. And then for the balls, we just like piped chocolate into the molds. But for the actual like bars, we went back to the tempered machine and we just added it on top. Now this class was quite like overwhelming. Crazy how the day before wasn't overwhelming, but today was very overwhelming because everything needs to be packaged. Yeah, each cookie that you see on this table had to be individually packaged. And I feel like people don't talk about packaging enough because that's also being a part of a pastry chef. You need to know how to package. And one thing I don't know how to do is wrap a gift. And I can't do that. So here's my partner trying to teach me how to package the small cookies. Apparently, we were only supposed to use one tape. So I was just like, why can't we use multiple tape? And apparently that's ghetto. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can try to package this using only one piece of tape. My fingers were trying to figure it out, and it was hard. So my partner was like, you know what? Why don't I package? Why don't I package and you just make the sandwiches? And I love that. I love when I can do stuff that I'm good at. But I also will practice packaging later on in the video. But here I am just making the sandwiches. You know, everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses. And my weakness is packaging. Like, I'm not Christian. I'm not making Christmas gifts. Like, even on Eid Day, you're getting money or nothing. I'm not packaging nothing. So here I'm making my sandwiches, moving it to the side for my partner.
I'll try the matcha. I had the ganache on it. I don't want too much. I'm just trying here.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And the only reason why I didn't like it was because it tasted like
Trying the fudge.
matcha.
Wow. Wow.
You try this one. It's really good.
I'm glad for that. I like matcha. It's good. It's sweet though. I feel
Water.
like having coming.
Sorry to all my nougat lovers, but like I wasn't a fan. I feel like if you're gonna be sugary, have sugar with purpose. And it wasn't that flavorful. Here I'm trying to package one more time. I was like, let me just follow what my partner was doing, which is like edge to edge, fold in, tuck in, turn to the side. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna add a tape because like he's not gonna see if I had tape. And then I'm gonna put the other part on top of it and no one's gonna see. You know, you don't need to struggle when you don't need to struggle. You feel me? So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna put tape there and then I'm gonna fold it in and we're going to put on the top. And we're gonna try. We're gonna stuff it in. And if no one sees the bottom of it, that's the best part. And guess what? Yeah, she's almost there. She'll get it. Fold it in, put it on top, and God damn. I really took long doing this one. Okay. But like at the end of the day, I got it. Look, I put the tape on, boom, finished. Cute. And then I did the matcha one. And then that was it. And here is the end result of all our hard work for 2 days. Our chocolate, our little caramels, our fudge, our individually packed cookies. It was honestly kind of stressful towards the end because packaging is really annoying. But at the end of the day, this was such a beautiful thing. And we got to take a lot home. Brought a lot of home. And like I even broke the chocolate pistachio at home. It was harder to break than I thought it would be, but it was fun. Now we are in day 1 of cake decorating. The last time I was in this class, I lost my scale and burned my hand, but hopefully this week will be smooth sailing, honestly. So we're making another vanilla cake, and then we're going to make a special kind of cake, a fondant cake, which I'm excited to show you guys. So here I just have like a huge sheet tray baking in the oven, and we're going to cut it up and you're going to see how we're going to do that. So here's my teacher showing us how she wants our cake slices. So the whole design of this cake is to make a cartoon style cake slice, which I think is really cool and innovative. That's something I've never done. So here we're just cutting out the shapes and then we're taking off the axis. If you're wondering where did the extra cake go, I took that stuff home and we've been eating it this past couple weeks. And then here I am just doing dishes because the most important thing about being a pastry chef is having a clean station and clean bowls, and you'd be shocked at how fast we go through dishes. All we be making is Swiss meringue. That's all. I have Swiss meringue in my bloodstream. So here's the cake we're going to be doing, like the example of it. And then I'm going to make my own colors, which I'm really excited about. So here I'm just cutting out the template and making sure it's like nice and perfect so that when we cut our cakes, there's no confusion. And we just like, if you see the demonstration on the left, it was like 4 slices on each side. So 4 for me and 4 for my partner. I'm just making sure the cake comes out easy. And this is after it cool off because I am not going to burn my hand again. Now, before you cut anything, you need to let that cake completely cool in the fridge. So I just flipped it on a tray, aka my partner flipped it on the tray because I'm not strong enough. So he flipped it on the tray and then I took it to the fridge and we let it cool completely before we cut our cake slices.
Going to go pray. I feel like today I'm just a little energy. I'm a little tired, but we're gonna make this cake, passion fruit mango.
Now the flavors of the cake was inside, so we have Swiss meringue, but the frosting flavors was mango and passion fruit. Now, me and my partner didn't really like the passion fruit by itself. It was quite tart. So we're like, we're going to have more mango in our cake, and we're going to mix the mango puree with the Swiss meringue to create like a really delicious mango flavored frosting. And then we're also going to do passion fruit. So that's kind of like the filling. Now, there are 4 layers to this cake. So you could do like mango, passion fruit, mango, passion fruit, mango, passion fruit, or like mango, passion fruit, mango, passion fruit. So only 4 times. But I was like, I want to do mango, 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 and passion fruit on the top. Now you're probably thinking that's not very smart because you should put the odd flavor in the middle. That's exactly what you should be doing, right? Did I do that? No. I totally forgot. But that was also like, I'd rather have the passion fruit at the top because if my family doesn't like it, I'm going to cut that stuff off and we're going to eat the bottom part. I always do that whenever I have something different because I don't really have a bakery, so I'm taking this stuff home. Anyone wants my cakes, but put a comment down below because me and my family are going to have diabetes by the end of this. But yeah, now we're moving on to the masking of this cake. Now, this is a very specific way you need to mask it. Because this cake is not a circle, it needs sharp edges. So my teacher was showing us how, like, the way you add the frosting is really important. You need to get the edges first, get them real sharp, and then fill it in. For me, I don't know why I cut such a thick, like, bag, like my pastry bag. I cut it way too big, so a lot was coming out. Don't be like me, like, keep it neat. And then I use my cake scraper to get really sharp edges. And the way you do that is by like, you scrape one side and then you scrape the other side to always keep the shape. So here I'm just going back and forth with my cake scraper, making sure the frosting comes off it each time because you need a clean one. And I'm just trying to maintain the shape of the triangle cake slice. Now, do I maintain it perfectly? That's up for debate. But is every cake slice perfect? No. It can be a little odd. It can be a little odd shape, you know. Maybe your mom didn't have a sharp knife, but like that doesn't matter. So here's my cake slice. I was like, I'm gonna put it in the fridge and then tomorrow we'll see what happens. Because we're covering it in fondant, so it doesn't have to be completely perfect. And like, okay, whatever. So here's my fondant candle. Now on the top of the cake, you always need a little candle. So I was like, let me do pink. I'm gonna do a pink and white candle. And we had to like twist it around to make it like really candle-like, you know, because most candles are not just one tone. So we twisted it and then we're gonna put a stick in it and we're gonna leave it overnight so that the fondant gets really dry. This was like the last hour of a 6-hour class. I was like, I don't care if this swirl thing is not perfect. I just want to go home. I was looking and I was like, it could be better, but it is what it is. I was like, I'm gonna stick this stick into it. I'm gonna let it dry and I'm gonna go home. And that's exactly what I did. This was the last thing we did for that class. And then the next day I cleaned and then I packed up and left. Now, day 2 is probably like the hardest day of cake decorating because that's when we do the bulk of our work. This is when we decorate, and that's when we have less hours compared to the other day. So here I'm just getting like my fondant all colored. And I wanted to do purple, brown, and pink. I always struggle with picking colors, and I don't know why I was thinking of, you know that notebook we used to have as a kid, the pink and brown one? I was like, let me just do something cute like that. So that's what the colors I picked. I even picked like purple. Ugh. I'm not really good with colors. So I was just like, I'm gonna pick 3 colors and call it a day. Now, the most important thing before you add fondant is like your cake has to be completely smooth because you can't really put like plaster on top of like a uneven wall. That's how I kind of think of it. Everything has to be smooth and like even. And then after, my teacher is really smart. She was like, when you roll your fondant out, at least have a template to see how long and far you need to go and how tall it needs to be. So we all got like parchment paper to see the sides of the cake and see like how long do I need to roll it and how does it need to look, because the fondants are going to be different. The sides of the cake are going to be different color compared to the back and the top. So the sides are going to be brown, and then I believe my top was like purple. Girl, I don't know these colors. I don't know why I chose these colors. Here I have the sides of the cake, which means that cake is basically chocolate. And what I did was, or what my teacher told me to do, was roll the fondant into like, kind of like a Swiss roll. And then I'm going to roll it out onto the cake, which is a lot easier than using a rolling pin, honestly. I actually prefer this way a lot better because it's kind of like you roll in, you roll out. And here I'm just rolling out the sides and making sure that it sticks to the cake. Because sometimes when you're rolling fondant on, you really need to press onto the cake, especially when it's cold frosting, so that it prevents it from falling off. Because if it falls off, you're gonna have to roll it again, and it's just like a hot mess. Now, right after I roll it on, I'm pressing onto the cake, making sure it sticks, but also I'm making sure that if there are any like long pieces, I cut them off. because fondant is very fragile. If there's anything long or too weighty, it will crack, it will break, it will just mess up the entire base. So here I'm just cutting the top off. I end up cutting the bottoms off, anything that was too long and in the way, just making sure it has a complete smooth base and is prepped for the next layer. Now the next part is rolling out the purple fondant for the side, the back, and the front of the cake. And then what I did was I just sort of remembered what my teacher was doing, which she had the fondant on a rolling pin and then she just rolled it out on the top to making sure that the back part is perfectly like a line, and then flipping the fondant on the top part and grabbing any excess. Because as I said before, if the fondant is too heavy, it will break. So just holding it while I'm rolling it and making sure I'm getting all the edges, seeing if everything fits, that everything's smooth. And I don't know why this camera is making it look like blue, but it was purple. It was pretty purple. And yeah, that's the top and the back part. Now with fondant, you're sort of like racing against time. Now, if you take too long to cut stuff off, again, it will break. If you take too long in general, it will crack. Fondant is kind of like dry skin. The more you neglect it, the longer you don't take care of it, like the worse it gets, the more cracky it gets, the harder it is to moisturize it. Like you can add grease to the fondant, but once it's completely cracked, it's finished. And that's exactly how it is. So for me, I was like, I'm working against time. I need to cut out the shape. Now I had to cut out like a frosting, like a woo on the sides of the cake. I don't know the word for it, but just a frosting drip to make it look really cool. And I used an X-Acto knife, so it's like a really sharp knife to get it perfect. Now to stick fondant into anything. Now to stick fondant, you're always using grease. So here we're using just grease and I'm putting on the edges. And this is where my frosting in the middle of my cake is gonna go. And I made it pink because one thing I'm gonna do actually is use pink. I don't know why I love pink, so I'm adding pink accents to all of it. I didn't really like the edges of the cake very much. I felt like I could have done better, but again, we were racing against time. I was trying to get everything on and get it done. Here, basically, when you do a cartoon cake, you need to, every single edge that you have, it needs to be covered in like a black fondant. So sort of create like a sketch look. So here I'm just getting all the edges of the cake to have that black fondant lined on it. And it's very hard because every time you like get the fondant like line perfect, it dries up and it cracks. So again, you really are racing against time and you need time to perfect it. But again, you just have to work fast. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was like going as quick as possible, making sure my lines line up, but also making sure my fondant isn't too cracked. Now by this time I was adding the finishing touches and getting everything done, and I was pretty much done. I was just putting the toppings on it. And here is the final cake. I'm really proud of this cake, and that was pretty much the end of my week. I had a really good time with this week. I feel like this week really pushed me, but it was honestly so much fun. Now if you're interested in seeing more baking shenanigans and me stressing about cake, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next week.
Oh, sweetie. I'll make one of those.